All right, good evening, everyone. I'm calling to order the Common Council for the City of Gladstone, the special meeting, April 28, 2015. It is now 6:32 in the evening. Jolene, can you do the roll call, please?
Councilor Nelson?
Here.
Councilor Mercero?
Here.
Councilor Johnson?
Here.
Councilor Sickman?
Here.
Councilor McMahon is absent. Councilor Reisner?
Here.
Mayor Jacobellis?
Sorry. There's just one gentleman in the back that not in the far, in the far back.
Before we get started, people, if we haven't learned the process, there's some, 5x7 yellow cards back there for comments. You need to fill one out with your name and the pertinent information in order to speak. So just please do that, because last time we had some confusion and it didn't get done in time. So if you'll do that for us, if you'll all join me, please, for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's an idea.
All right. So the first order of business, any business from the audience?
Yes. Tammy Stemple, will you come to the mic?
So official. Hello, Tammy Stemple, 6960 Winfield Court, and also Gladstone Planning Commission. A couple things. The very first thing is that I go to quite a few regional committees meetings. I'm on a couple regional committees on behalf of Gladstone, and I wasn't sure if you guys wanted formal reports from me or how you wanted that handled. I'm on the Development Liaison Committee for the county, I'm on the Economic Development Commission, and I'm on the Clackamas Transportation Advisory Committee, which Mayor Jacobellis went today with me. So how would you like that handled? In the past, you guys haven't really wanted anything, but I think I'm going to throw it to you guys, so think about it. The next thing is, I've been out talking to some young professionals, trying to convince them to buy homes in Gladstone, because we are becoming this affordable pocket amongst outrageously priced homes. And one of the challenges, the barriers, is down payments. A lot of them have very hefty student loans, and it's hard to save up enough money to put down towards a house. So I mentioned to Pete that there may be some programs out there that where municipalities can step in and provide some kind of help or partnerships to help pay for that, to encourage home ownership. And I did actually find a couple on the federal level that we would qualify for that were really, I thought, would fit the bill. So if you guys want any more information on it. One is the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, and the other one is Home Investment Partnerships Program. Seattle has some programs in place, too, that I'm kind of looking at that sound good, too. So if you're interested, I'll do a little bit more research for that. And the last thing is you guys have a little colored piece of paper on your, yes. One of the things I keep hearing about when I'm talking about a sense of place and entering Gladstone and giving us a presence is that you drive into Gladstone off of the freeway and it's rocks, it's not very pleasant. So I was looking at Metro's Green Streets programs and their green trees and came up with an idea where we could get someone to sponsor the trees and green up the entrance to Gladstone. So just for you guys to look at, if you're at all interested. It's an ODOT right-of-way. We could probably, I'm 99.9% sure ODOT would pitch in, if not cover it all. There's the Friends of Trees, and there's also Metro's programs available.
Tammy, who would do the maintenance on the trees when they get larger and as far as pruning?
Well, we do maintenance on our trees. Being that it's in an ODOT right-of-way, I'm not quite sure. But
if they would do that, or
yeah, it's something to think about. So anyway, that was it.
The down payment thing is very interesting. I hope you'll continue to pursue it.
I agree.
I was pleasantly surprised how many programs are already out there and established.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
In regards, hold on. It's just in regards to the different committees that she goes to, and I'm going to start going to some of them, and I think we're going to have a discussion about attending them. I think it's beneficial and what's least labor-intensive for you. I think it's beneficial for us to keep abreast of what is transpiring. We learned this from the last letter of interest I did on the grant thing. If we can kind of stay abreast and we know what's happening, then it's not such a shocker to our system and says, hey, we got a deadline to meet, and we're going to put this thing in, and then we're all systems go. So I would be encouraged if, whatever meetings you go to that we don't go to, if you would just, like I said, the least labor intensive. I don't want a big old report and typewritten and...
I could just do a quick bullet point or give you an agenda. The development liaison is every third month. Sometimes we have a couple more because we're looking at system development charges. Economic development is monthly and CTAC is monthly. So I can just do a quick overview once a month and put it in, give it to Jolene or Tammy and include it in your packet.
Does that sound like something you guys are interested in?
Something worth talking about, sure.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
Next is Kirk Stemple.
It's in the family.
Kirk Stemple, 6960 Winfield Court. First of all, nothing my wife does as far as report writing is simple bullet points. You will get a nice multi-page document. So, what I have is a little bit more exciting than the trees, I feel. So last week, myself and another person and the Honorable Mayor went to a unveiling of the new Pulse Point. Okay, for those of you who do not know what it is, Pulse Point is a little application that you install on your smartphone, and I'm sure everybody's using smartphones. Basically, what it does is, if you are trained in CPR, your GPS on your phone will notify you if there is an event happening near you. Basically, what it allows the public to go do a quick CPR. As you know, minutes count when it comes to cardiac arrest. And with this application, it's just a fabulous. Clackamas Fire rolled it out through Clackamas County throughout. They've had it for a while. Now Gladstone's on board with it. And, I do encourage you guys to take a peek at the Pulse Point website. Download it on your phone. It's an amazing application. Again, if you're out and about, you're notified if there is a cardiac arrest near you, so you can quickly respond. Any questions on that?
They've been talking about that on the news.
Yes.
Same thing.
I mean, it's great. Also, along that line, I'm working on, with the Chief's blessing, working on a program to get into Cracksburg, into the middle school for the 8th grade, to teach them hands-only CPR. I feel the 8th grade, I've talked to my son, he's a freshman in high school. 8th grade is a really good age to know CPR. Going into a high school, the kids should know it. So I'm working on that program to get into the junior high. Questions for me? Awesome.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kurt.
That's it?
Okay, we're going to move on to the consent agenda at this portion, and all we have on that is the approval of the March 10th, 2015 minutes.
Make a motion that we approve the March 15th minutes.
I second that.
I have a motion by Councilor Nelson and a seconded by Councilor Mercero. Any discussion? All right. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay. March 10th, 2015 minutes have been approved.
I did the same thing. I looked after I said March 15th. March
the next item is correspondence, and I talked to Ms. Kuntz about her letter. We've got a letter regarding business license fees. She's going to address the council when we get to the regular agenda on that specific letter and some of her concerns. Moving down to the regular agenda, item number 3, which is the Gladstone Community Festival Agreement. And I think, Pete, you've got to start.
Sure. This is essentially a retread of what we had last year. The cost impact to the city is between $1,400 and $1,500, and that includes in-kind services. It's much less than what happened in the past. Staff's recommending City Council adopt this. I also wanted to mention for the record, I am a member of the Gladstone Oak Grove Rotary Club. I don't participate in the community festival on that end of things. Jolene does most of the negotiation on the contract language itself. I just wanted that in the record so it's understood. With that, we can answer any questions. It looks like a good event again this year.
I need to go on record that I am very heavily involved in the community festival. I'm on the board of directors. I've worked with them the last several years. So in my role, I probably need to step down and not participate in discussion or voting on this.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'd like to note also that I am part of one of the events in the car show. Quite frankly, my car club takes care of everything, and I don't know that I should be stepping down or whatever. I don't see where...
Recusing yourself.
What's that?
Recusing, is that the word?
Recuse is the word.
Yeah. So you're recusing yourself, Ken's recusing himself?
I'm recusing myself. I think he said he's not.
Oh, you're not, okay.
Right.
Okay. And we just...
Somebody else feels differently.
And, Mr. Mayor, just as a reminder, and Councilor Sickman brought this up before the meeting started, just to double check, if there's an actual conflict, in which case you, family member, going to make some money, lose some money off of your vote, you have to step down. If it's a potential conflict, then you have the option of not. And when I say step down, you don't have to physically leave, but not participate, or you don't have to. You can participate if you wish, if it's just a potential, so long as it's been noted, which it has.
Okay.
And mine is probably not conflict, it's more on bias.
Bias.
Now, that raised a question. My car club does collect money. I don't receive any of it.
Provided you and your family members and this whole group of people that we've discussed before are not making money or have a financial interest, you're okay. It's just a potential conflict, in which case you can participate and vote.
Okay. I wanted to point out that Councilor McMahon has arrived. It is now 6:44. Okay, so we've got all, I think, caveats out of the way. I'm entertaining a motion.
Well, I've got a question, if I may.
Go ahead.
Last year, the city's restrooms at Max Patterson were open for use, along with some portable toilets that were brought in. Is that still going to be the same? Because it wasn't mentioned in here.
Yeah, that's my understanding. It will be the same setup as last year, yes.
Okay, should it be in here? I mean, I don't know how detailed you want to get.
Yeah. I just
want
don't
to
know
make
if
sure
it has
because
to be in
but
there.
I know in the past, but when it was Chautauqua, it was frustrating because they were locked, and I really appreciated, and I know a lot of other people did, that they were available for use.
Yeah. I'm more than happy to instruct the Public Works Supervisor to make sure those restrooms are open. I don't think that's more of an internal city item rather than something the Rotary Club would be.
Well, I was just looking under the city duties.
Sure.
I mean, it kind of gets to so many pylons here and this and that, so
okay.
That's the only question I had.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we,
When do you want to have public input?
Oh, you want to do that before we approve it?
Yeah.
You have to.
Okay.
You don't approve it.
Okay, could I have Bob Everett come to the mic?
she's good.
Thank God.
Hi, Bob Everett. I'm here representing Gladstone Oak Grove Rotary. I am a resident, 18235 Stonewood Drive, and a business owner. Anyway, Joe wasn't able to be here tonight, and I know he wanted me to say a few things, so he asked me to be here. And Joe is the president of our club. He's also, you would tend to say, chairman or head of the board of directors, and I'm also on the board of directors too. So first off, of course he wanted to thank the city and all the councilors here for the past, what they've done for us in the past and everything else, and he did also bring up the restrooms, and to thank the city for having those open, and to reassure that the city that we would take care of those and make sure that they're as he would put it, Rotary will patrol the bathrooms for cleanliness once again. So we'll take care of that then too. He also wanted to emphasize that what the festival does tend to do. For instance, the car show raised $2,110 last year. $1,000 of that went to the center for children, along with a matching $1,000 from Rotary International. $1,000 went to the high school for a scholarship, and then there were other donations that were made to the Gladstone Fire Department and things like that. And then the Rotary did end up keeping $3,000 as seed money for this year. And one of the things I want to speak of is this year, I'm excited for this year. I think we're going to have a lot more activities up at the park. We're planning to have more there, more entertainment. One of the things I'm looking into, since I am in charge of the park activities, is potentially a dunk tank. And of course, I know all the council members would be more than willing to participate in that then too. And I'm sure that there could be a lot of funds raised for that. So I know I'd pay for that. And also, there was one issue he wanted to have me mention, was that there is a business on Portland Avenue that is affected by the car show, by the closure of the street, and they have sort of issued some issues a little bit with that. I understand that we are addressing that in some particular fashion for the business, try to help them out, maybe open up a pathway through there for their customers, and or some other way that they can benefit from the car show then too. But it was a concern last year, and I know he's on it then too. And anyway, but again, I want to thank everybody, and I'm excited for this year, and we're looking to improve it and make it better each and every year, so that the city can be proud of it. And again, it is no longer the cultural festival; it's a community festival, because we felt that reflected the attitudes of Gladstone and the area then too. Anyway, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there any other public testimony?
There's no more public testimony, but I wanted to address, so that everybody knows, that I've checked with the insurance company, and the insurance company maintains their same stance, that they do not want the road open in the middle. Now, as last year, you could decide what you wish to do, but our insurance company is telling us they don't want us to do it in relationship to the business.
Okay. I don't understand. Which road are we talking about?
Portland.
You mean Portland Avenue?
Yes.
That isn't, we understand that. And that isn't what we were talking about, that I understood, in relationship to having some access. It would be more from the side road, so that somebody could get in. It's the cleaners is what it is. And I understand that's the first weekend of every month is one of their busiest weekends of all, and so it does hinder their business. And so we're trying to figure out some way that people could come up, come down from, just from the side road a little bit too. Okay, so we understand that point. So, okay, so I hope that helps.
So, Jolene, were you talking about something else, or were you talking about that?
I had heard that there was a different business that wanted to have Portland Avenue opened.
I have not heard that.
Okay.
And I thought last year the issue was the fire department and whether they had access on the Portland Avenue. Is that not? I think that's what the issue was last year, and that they made the city council went ahead and did it anyway and had barricades for the truck and engine to get out on the Portland Avenue. So.
And it worked out. It wasn't as dramatic as they expected. The barriers came down before halfway through the show.
I understand. I mean, that's what the insurance company had the issue with last year, though, was that. Okay.
So I'm kind of lost in this whole thing. So we had barricades up to accommodate the fire department. We did not have barricades up. Stan, if you want to please address the esteemed members of the council.
Jolene, help me out. I think I recall what happened.
Stan, last name.
Stan Monty.
Oh, thank you.
230 West Exeter. Anyway, Jolene, help me out if I get off base. I think I know what you're referring to. Last year, the Dartmouth was a road that they wanted to keep open, and the city did, because they wanted to keep traffic coming through there as a main route. That's where the fencing was going to be put forward. The fire department also wanted access to get out onto Exeter, but it was more the Dartmouth that the insurance company had the issue with, the fencing and the gating, if I recall correctly.
No.
Maybe I can clear up some of this.
Hey, Mr. Sipping,
we have a couple of issues, or last year we dealt with a couple of issues. There was concerns for access in and out of the police department and fire department. Last year they come up with, well, let's put cones up, keeping people out of this. About probably 30 minutes into the event, I was contacted by the police and fire, and they said, this is making it worse. I know we told you to put these cones up. Now we're asking you if you would remove them. And as what it is from Dartmouth to Exeter is closed except for emergency access only. So the street is open for people to use, but when a big fire truck or police cars with flashing lights, people get out of the way for them. So, and that was kind of what was agreed on this year. I intend on working with Public Works, the fire department, and the police department to satisfy all of this, because it wasn't dealt with yet. And like Pete said on the restrooms, that can all be done internally. The other closures are Exeter Street, 1 block east and 1 block west, is also closed for emergency access only. So there won't be cars driving up and down that street, but police and fire trucks will be open for them. The other issue that was talked about with Jolene is at Gloucester. This agreement, I believe, goes clear to Ipswich.
Jersey.
There is an issue with a business at the Gloucester intersection, and they would like to have the street closure stop before their parking lot starts. On Portland Avenue, and then continue. And as what I've heard from Jolene last year and heard this year after requesting our check on it again, is our insurance company asks that we do not have a partial street open in the middle of the event. So, does that clarify any of it, or did I just make it worse? We were talking about two different issues.
I thought it was the Dartmouth thing.
So as far as the insurance, we can resolve this by moving it back to the next intersection.
We just close all the way to Gloucester.
But then the business would have an issue.
Right.
Okay, all right. So is this something, if we go with this agreement, can you rework this to accommodate or figure out what can work for the insurance company, or do we have to put this aside and re-vote on it after you retool it?
Well, I think if you'd give me the authority to work on the street closure independently of the agreement, I think that could work.
I do too. And I think that is the insurance company's concern just a legal risk.
Correct. Well, they either wanted, if you remember, they wanted the construction fencing to go up.
Mm-hmm.
And if we didn't put the construction fencing up, they wanted
Flaggers.
flaggers.
Which we did at Dartmouth.
So, and if we didn't have construction fencing up, they wanted to have a much larger insurance policy from Rotary. And last year, what ended up happening is that the council decided we weren't going to do the construction fencing and we weren't going to make Rotary come up with additional insurance.
So basically, the city assumed higher risk for allowing that to happen.
Okay, well, let's have our final discussion then. Do you guys want to authorize Pete to work on the traffic closure to try to get closer to what we need for insurance purposes, or are you willing to do like you did last year and run the risk and assume that additional liability? I guess that's the only question left on this thing before we vote on it. Thoughts, comments, questions?
I know that last year the council tied themselves in knots over this issue. Is this something that we can look at separately of the whole agreement so we can get the rest of the agreement done, or is this something we need to authorize our city administrator to work on, or? Because I know that last year this took up a lot of council time, and
well, I guess we can authorize Pete to work on the closure, and then we're also authorizing Pete then to make decisions based on what he finds out without coming back to us as what the understanding would be. Because then otherwise, then we're coming back and we're going to revisit the whole thing again. So that's the way I see it. We're saying he's got the authority to do what he has to do, and we're okay with that.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll make a motion.
Okay. And then, okay, let's make a motion. Make a motion to execute, have staff execute the agreement for the Gladstone Community Festival.
Yeah, I make a motion that Gladstone Community Festival agreement with Gladstone Oak Grove Rotary be approved, except for the portion that Pete's going to work on.
no? And giving Pete the authority to work on it.
No, because you're approving the whole thing.
I'm approving
Right,
this
and
part.
we just,
What Pete is working on.
But if you don't,
we're just going to approve the whole thing,
With the
and the
agreement.
direction would be that he's got the authority to make the road closures and everything to get it close. We don't even have to, I think
Okay,
we...
that's my motion then.
Okay, to execute the agreement, motion's made by Councilman Nelson. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, so execute the agreement, staff. Thank you.
Damn, I didn't think we'd get through that one.
And Pete, while you're at it, whatever you come up with on it, can we just not run into the same thing next year? Let's come up with something more concrete and permanent, so we don't have to wrangle with it again.
Sure.
We had a year to figure it out.
Yeah.
We
The
probably
real
could've figured it out.
issue on this is, where do we park cars? For the car show.
Where you park cars, yeah.
Yeah, so, whatever you come up with, okay, is where we'll park cars.
Okay. All right, we are adjourning the special meeting. Now we're moving into a work session. We're not taking any action in the work session. We're just having discussions about these three items on the regular agenda. And item number 4 is the first one we're going to talk about, which is the discussion of the business license and rental fees. At this portion, we will take public testimony, and we can start, I believe, with...
could I have Rusty Kuntz come to the microphone?
My name is Rusty Coons, and I live in West Lynn at River Heights. And I own 2 sixplexes, or 12plex, on Reinarson Road, right off River Road, half a mile up from McLaughlin. I wrote a letter to the City Council and talked with Pete regarding my concerns about an increase in the business licensing. I've owned the Lanissa Apartments now for 17 years and have paid a $35 a year business license. When I received my business license bill this year, it was $405. If my math is correct, and I am not used to doing math of this kind, that was a 1,200% increase without warning, without any reason for it. It just arrived in the mail. This increase, in my opinion, is inappropriate as imposed by the last city council. Without warning or explanation, and this along with a 400% increase in my sewer and water fees and other requirements by the city of Gladstone, I believe to be unreasonable expenses and increases in the small business owners of this community. I could just stop here, but I would like to add this as commentary, that the issues of the working class and the small business owners of this country is a national issue, and in Congress, on both sides of the aisle, and you'll see in the coming elections, on a national and state level, it's going to be a huge issue about the working class people and the small business owners. The tax incentives that we receive as shelter, as small business like mine, are legally in place because we provide reasonable rents to the working class who might otherwise be on government assistance. I cannot, in all fair conscience, increase my rents to keep pace with the Gladstone business fees increase. And I might add, as a 78-year-old widow, I rely on this income from these apartments along with a $1,200 Social Security check per month as my sole income. Unfortunately, my late husband's 30-year pension with Pan American World Airways disappeared with the demise of that wonderful company. And I'm very hopeful that the new mayor and the new council members, along with the old, will be more sensitive to the needs and the concerns of the small business people of Gladstone and rescind this current increase. And I might add, while I'm up here, a review of the City of Gladstone Sewer and Water Department would be appreciated also. I have complained to the Water Department that my increase from a $200 bill to a $900 bill is just an increase that is unconscionable. And I'm told that it's a flat fee levied upon my apartments per unit, that the amount of use has nothing to do with what I'm billed. It's just a flat fee per unit. My 12 units are occupied by 8 single people. 2 apartments have a youngster each, and the 4 other units are rented to couples who have no children. And I am assessed $900 for water and sewer. I would like to see somewhere where we can use a as used and a meter reading, as I would think is normal and would be fair. And that's all I have to say. I hope you take it under consideration. I also, is exit 9 Oregon City or Gladstone off 205?
I think it's Oregon City, possibly.
Well, it's the dirtiest exit on the entire 205 highway. I'm also curious about the pipe that's being drilled between River Road going over to Lake Oswego, if someone would like to comment on that.
Totally different topic, Mrs. Coombs,
Okay.
and that would take up
A
lot of time.
So my primary
But thank you.
concern, I've never done this before, my primary concern is the business fee.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Any other
No.
cards? No other cards? All right, so who would like to start? Maybe we should have a start as to basically what the overview is. Do we have that? I mean, the breakdown, the process for notification, do we want to do that, or you guys want to just launch into it and start talking about
The
it?
history of how we got here, a little bit, up, high level.
Okay. Well, as discussed in the staff notes, City Council had a concern about fees, brought it up. The Assistant City Administrator looked into fees and looked at what other jurisdictions were doing. November 12th, 2013, the first draft master fee schedule was brought forward to City Council. The fees did include the revised business license and the rental fee. Council asked staff to go back, and some changes were made. It was brought back to Council on January 14th, 2014. And that's when Council adopted the master fee schedule. So that's how we got here. I believe a City Councilor brought up the rental fee as a way to generate revenue to help supplement services provided in the general fund.
How many years did we go without an increase? Quite a few, I believe, didn't we?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the exact date, but it was many years.
Many years ago, that was our initial increase, and we went like 15, 20 years without an increase.
I know.
Which is, we should have did a better job of catching up. It wouldn't be such a shock now, but it's not out of line with other cities.
1,200% increase.
Well, that was because we got 20 years to catch up. You can't just go back, We should have done a better job of scaling it up over the years. But at some point, you got to catch up.
At some point, I think the small business owners.
Yeah.
Pete,
Yes.
at the time, and I know this is probably going to be going from memory, but was there comparisons to other jurisdictions around us done?
I'm going to look at the Assistant City Administrator for that.
Yes.
Yes, there was.
Yes, there was.
And does our new fees kind of represent a culmination of that information?
I made copies of business fees so that you could review them and decide.
Do we also have a copy of what the fees were before they were raised? I'd asked for that last week. Did you get anything else?
Part of those fees now, the question I have, you were talking about water and sewer, and that's something that we have to pay somebody else to accept our sewage and everything. We don't own it, so therefore whatever they raise it, just like dump fees, if you go down to Metro, they just go up. The dump fees aren't? I'll argue that point with you.
$154.34 every single month for 17 years.
As far as the sewer and water are concerned, not to ruin your day, but you should anticipate doubling or potentially tripling in 10 years, I would bet you. We have some huge projects that we are going to fight with, I think, but that are very expensive: sewer, water, and stormwater. That is coming up. So this is not going to be the first one.
Oh, it's not the first one. It's been going doubling actually every year. But a 1,200% increase without warning, without explanation.
That's probably our fault.
Hey, on the business license issue, I attended a few coffee with the councilors where we received a lot of input. I believe there's actually some multiple issues where people are tying to that. One, for example, which I was a part of originally, but in the past there were 3 different types, and correct me if I'm wrong, 3 types of different business licenses, okay, at least. For retail businesses, it was roughly around $100. Then for residential business licenses, there was 2. One was for people doing very little with traffic, and the second one was a little bit more because there would be more traffic. One of the things that I wasn't aware of when I approved it, and others may be able to join in if they were here, okay? The one for the businesses was around $100, and we're just rounding off numbers at this point. The one for the residential was around $50, approximately. What happened in this approval is we evidently approved for the residential, we approved the $50 that tagged on to the $100. So people were seeing on their bill $150 approximately, as compared to what they used to see for $35 or $50 or whatever. Can I give her this?
Right.
And based on that, and we asked a question here a while ago, and supposedly that's what we did agree to, but that was a misunderstanding on my part, and I apologize, but I didn't realize that happening. Another comment by people in this coffee with the counselor was regarding businesses that were senior citizens that were having a business strictly to support their senior habit, okay, and that went up for the same reason from 100 to 150 to where they're only maybe making $50 a month. So people are saying, gee whiz, maybe we ought to do something different.
Right. So you're right, and there are two different fees. One's for a home occupation permit, and that's the $50 you're talking about. And then if someone is running a business, then they need to obtain a business license, and that's how the doubling has happened. And we've talked about it before, and you make a good point that you have someone with a home business paying actually a little bit more than a brick-and-mortar business on McLaughlin Boulevard might, simply because they have to have the home occupation permit. So that is something we should talk about.
And like
an apartment considered running a business?
Well, like
yes.
Your issue, I believe the rate went up, and I'm not sure how we established the rules before or after or whatever, but I would imagine somehow that just in doing things, okay, we didn't realize, at least I didn't realize, what it would do to some folks. Now, it didn't seem to affect everybody that way, but two mobile home outfits I've talked to, and both of them got stabbed. So,
and that's because there's the $25 fee that's associated with each unit. So the more units you have, the higher the fee.
So,
and that was new. And that's why...
Mine is $405 for 12 units.
I can understand why you were upset. If I would have got that, I would have screamed in horror myself. But.
I think, the $25 per unit I don't think is excessive. And looking through this information of Milwaukee, West Lynn, Happy Valley, Oregon City, Lake Oswego, they're all our immediate neighbors. I think the $100 business license is in line. And even like the, using just 12 units, it's about $3 a month per unit.
You're talking about communities that have a higher per capita income and the rents are higher. We were just talking about Gladstone being a affordable community, and the rents are more affordable here. And you are taxing us at the same rate of Lake Oswego and West Lynn and Happy Valley, where the rents on their properties would probably be $100 a month higher than mine.
What do you think would be a comparable city for us to use?
I think Oregon City.
I thought I mentioned Oregon City.
Well, and the other thing to consider is, they might have a higher tax rate per capita household, that's true, but the city operating expense to manage the city is we gotta pay what we gotta pay. We don't get a reduced rate because we have, lower economic people. That's...
I feel that it should be on the backs of the small business owner who's struggling to make an income.
So my question, are we, Jolene, on this, everything is pretty clear, because at first it was kind of confusing about this rental. If you don't live in the city, let's say you live in Oregon City and you have 3 rental properties. We have a way of notifying those people in Oregon City that they have rental businesses, that they would pay, basically it's just $25 a piece, correct?
Plus the $100 license fee.
Right, for doing business here.
Right.
But not the home occupation fee is the only one.
So we haven't done this because we're waiting for your discussion. So we went through all of the water records to determine who is renting. And these are individuals that the water records show are rentals in the city of Gladstone.
Yeah, we got a lot of them now.
And have we, this is the first time we've been able to identify the difference?
Yes.
So there was several
Yes.
in the years past, or this past year, because it's the first year we've had it, correct?
Correct. So we know the commercial ones, but the individuals, these are the individuals that we don't necessarily, because they're not an apartment building,
Right.
know about. So we've identified them, and we are waiting for the council to make a decision so we can know how we're going to implement this.
Have we taken a number of how many we got here?
I numbered it,
Oh.
so that there's, because I knew that would be a question.
865.
865 rentals.
And that's 865 unit, or property addresses, that's not
Property.
That's not units, so
Correct.
there's even
Yeah,
more, because some of these are
865
multiple on that
property.
list.
While we're talking about identification, I was kind of working on this, and I thought, well, I'll go to the Secretary of State's webpage and get a list of registered businesses, according to the Secretary of State, in the city of Gladstone. I think I got 1,200. So in the city, for one reason or another, there's 1,200 business names registered. Now, several of them may be one business owner, but he has several assumed business names. If they're doing business and they're paying the Secretary of State for a business name every year, would we take and expect them to own a business license for each business name that they're using? Some of these are non-profits. I noticed in this paperwork some of the cities require non-profits to have a business license. I don't believe we do.
Do not.
So in identifying, would we want to have non-profits have a business license as well? Now, some of the non-profits could be some of the larger churches. Our fire department has got a fire department association. I may not have the term correct, but I believe that's it. They have a registered business name, so they would need a business license. Schools. One of them that I found in here was like Cub Scout Pack 386 or whatever it was. I mean, so you've got a den mother that registered her Cub Scout pack with the state. Unless we have some kind of determination, those are the people that you may have some unintended consequences required when you require a non-profit business license. But I can also see a reason for having a non-profit to have a business license. So, just on the surface, there's a lot of things. The other thing that I ran into in here was I seen there was several attorneys' names that I recognized that had numerous business licenses registered to them. Well, I contacted a couple of them and talked to them. They are registered agents according to the Secretary of State. They're not actually the business owner. They are the registered agent. They're the mailing address for a business that they set up for a client. So there's out of these 1,200, I come up with all kinds of questions that, what do we do with them?
Back to the 1,200 business owners, if you consider 1,200%
Okay.
increase on 1,200 businesses, that's a heck of a lot of income you're generating.
We're just going to, this is kind of our, you've had your say and we heard your input and appreciate it, and we're just going to kind of kick this around as much as we can to get to where we need to try to make some changes if we can. Thanks.
I mean, one of the things that I found out while I was gathering data, and now we've got some more data, I think we really need to look at this. I mean, we can have our discussion here and everything else, but I think maybe we should really look at what we want to do overall. I really think, as far as the home occupation, I think it was a misinterpretation between council and city staff. I believe council, and I was here for those meetings. I wasn't on council, but I was in the audience, and I believe their understanding was the business licenses for a home occupation were going to go from $35 to $50, and the brick and mortar type applications were going to go from $35 to $100. And I think that a lot of, talked about the coffee with the counselor, I think a lot of the people that I've talked to are the home occupation license people. They went from $35 to $150, plus an extra $5 because I was an owner, which we didn't charge before. We didn't charge the first employee or the first two employees. I think a lot of this could be alleviated with having the home occupation license 1 or 2 at $50, the business license at $100, and then the $25 per unit on the rentals. I think that would solve a lot of our problems with what we've got now. And the big thing is education, information, letting people know, allowing people to come and talk about it. I don't think the communication was real good. Last time it was just kind of there and it happened.
On these 1,200, if you took away the nonprofits, which I guess it'd be hard to are they identified on your list as nonprofits?
Yes.
Okay, so if you took out the nonprofits, how many does that leave you with, roughly? Any idea?
It was amazing. There wasn't that many nonprofits listed.
So, maybe less than 50 or somewhere thereabouts?
Yeah, let's see.
So we're still in the 1,100 range for businesses. And how many, Jolene, do you know how many, or Pete, either one, you know how many businesses are registered? Do we have a list, how many?
Bring that
It's about 400.
So we got about 400. So there's 700. Now, again, some of those are going to be those attorneys with 4 or 5 addresses, which,
If you're a registered agent, every corporation in Oregon must have a registered agent to receive, process of service if lawsuits or whatever occur. And that can be anyone over 18 years of age. I could make anyone who agrees to it to be my registered agent if I own a business. And so a lot of attorneys become the registered agent because they helped incorporate and set up the business. So if they don't own the business, they're not a part of the business, they're there just to receive mail if the business is sued. So a registered agent's not a business itself.
And then quite often the business owner probably has a business license in whatever city they're in as well, I would think, because then they're just using the lawyer as you said, as
correct,
the registered agent.
And businesses who operate in multiple cities pay multiple business license fees, just like our firm pays a Gladstone business license as well as a Portland, as well as all of our other clients. So you can be one business and pay multiple fees depending on where you're operating as well.
And just, I mean, can you just kind of enlighten us a little bit? What's your take on a home occupation business where they've got 3 business names, doing business as Joe's Welding, doing business as, A&A Ironworks, and...
So when you register with set up your business with the Oregon Secretary of State, you have an official name, and then you can create as many DBAs as you want so that you can advertise to a specific market. So you're still the same one business, you're only one business, but you just have multiple names that you use to advertise yourself. But it's still one business, just multiple DBAs.
So that would answer a lot of...
And as far as the home occupation, just to be clear, that's a completely separate permit. That has nothing to do with your business license.
Right.
And one way we can get around it if you don't want to double up is in the whole list of exemptions from a business license, you can say anyone who pays a home occupation permit fee is also exempt, if that's the way you want it to go, so that they're not paying both the business license, one thing, and then the home occupation permit, which is a separate permit.
Is the permit a one-time thing, or is it a yearly thing?
I believe it's yearly.
Yearly.
Okay. So it's basically a license too then.
So I think that the general purpose of home occupation is to have some control over what is appropriate use in residential neighborhoods.
And that, exactly. And so
we have some of those issues where I've heard of some that coffee with counselor, as a matter of fact, where you've got people with a perpetual garage sale, you've got junk dealers with beat-up old refrigerators coming and going, and that sort of heavy commercial industrial use really is not appropriate for a residential neighborhood. On the flip side of that, the world has changed a great deal since that code was written. The world of the internet is here, and a lot of people, professionals and otherwise, work at home over the internet, cell phones, and are fairly low impact. So we need to take that into account as well. But I think that the purpose of it was to have some control over what was going on in residential neighborhoods. And I would support that. I think it's still a good idea to do that. But on the other hand, we have to be careful not to be punishing the people who are using modern technologies and who have a fairly low footprint on the neighborhood. So a balance.
Councilor Johnson, you're exactly right. So the home occupation permit is there to notify neighbors, if a business is happening. It also limits the number of trips in and out to the home, and it also requires screening of the business. You want to look at the home and just see a normal residence. You don't want to see a commercial building.
Right. As I recall from reading the code, assembly places where employees come 8 o'clock in the morning, park all their cars and go to work, and then leave at 5 o'clock was not desirable in a residential type neighborhood. Sure. Semi-retired physicians, I think the code discusses maybe psychiatrists who have a part-time business who are semi-retired. Again, that goes back quite a ways, but I think that was the purpose of that. So.
Another question, which is, you hear it, and I think we can kind of, with this list now, we can at least try to take care of the rental end that we're missing. But the other portion of it is the enforcement end of it. We've got, so the question would be this: what's the pushback where we really don't have an arm to do it, but there are some, let's say, blatant violators are operating in the city without a business license and without a city business license, and we see it, it's in our face, and we say, hey, you need to come down and get a business license. And he goes, hey, you know what, I ain't gonna do it. The other guy is not doing it, I'm not doing it. And if we don't follow up and do it to every single person that's working in the city, what does that do to us? What does that do for our, you know what I'm saying? If we don't enforce it all the way through, is there a problem with that?
Are you asking me, or are you asking...
No, because you're the... it's just a question.
Well, cities are required, you don't want to arbitrarily enforce, but you can only do what the best you can do as far as what you blatantly see, or if it's complaint-driven. I know that the city of Portland used to have part of their business license group was devoted to driving down streets, looking at businesses, checking their database, checking the, back in the day when we had yellow pages a lot, checking the yellow pages and seeing, so they had an enforcement section. But, that costs money for a city, and obviously in the cities of certain sizes, it may not be feasible to raise your fees to a point that you can enforce at that level with that kind of personnel. So if you know your business is not cooperating and not following through with paying its business license fee, we do need to do something about it. It does not mandate that the city go out and look every day with personnel trying to find businesses. If you want to do that, you could. It's just expensive.
Who's going to do it for the city? A code enforcement officer, or who would be responsible for that? Knocking on doors?
Right now, if someone doesn't have a business license, we become aware of it, we do send code enforcement.
Then he'll write a citation.
Yeah, we'll usually attempt to make a phone call with City Hall staff if that doesn't result in the business obtaining a...
Though, does it? Probably not.
Usually not. Mostly it's complaint-driven. It's people that obtain business licenses now. It's pretty much on the honor system. If they have a business, most people know that usually a business license is involved, and they come to the city looking for it. If we become aware, we can follow through with the code enforcement. But again, as we all know, we're looking at code enforcement right now for a number of other things they're not doing. So if we
add this to his plate.
Right. So if we dump a huge workload related to business licenses on code enforcement, that will have an impact on other things. They're all interrelated.
What I mentioned originally when I started on this is that there are a number of different issues which can be tied to one thing, something else another thing. One of the items is on rentals, okay? Like in Portland, okay, you're required to file a tax return on any business that you've got, rental business that you've got in the Portland district, Portland area. I'm involved in that, and I had 4 properties in there, so I filed one tax return which included the 4 properties, okay? That is with the income and all kinds of crap you got to do. But you turn that into the city, okay? They look at it, and so far for me, the charge is $200 a year. That's my business license fee for a rental, okay? Unless I sell a property, of which then the capital gains is charged, and the city will charge you again for that. But that's the way Portland deals with it.
So Milwaukee's got a $100 charge.
There's different ways of doing it.
Same thing.
And I believe we've really got a few different things that need to be talked about, and decided upon. And one of the things that I would think may work, we did get in the Coffee of the Council, which has been mentioned by several people have made comments about different items. And maybe it'd be appropriate to get a advisory committee together to help sort some of the stuff out, make recommendations to the council, and then the council someplace can take it from there and do something with it to make sense of everything, because there's several pieces.
Well, and we were hoping that that we would have more participation, me personally, that we would have more participation in tonight's meeting, more public input on the outset about what the concerns were, what they'd like to see. A couple of things that come to mind that Well, we'll get back to yours. Remind me to get back to the notification on the rental properties, because I'll forget. One of them is the notification process itself. I think we can kind of, at least one thing, agree that any increase in rate, we've got a year before it takes effect. Should we just say, in August, whenever, you're going to just mail out a notification saying, hey, you got a 3% bump in your thing, so it's not a shocker. Maybe that takes care of one end of the complaint process. And it's just a thought. I'm just throwing it out. Second thing we've heard a lot of pushback on, notification was an issue, the jump was an issue, we all know that. But the third thing is what are we getting for our buck? So we're paying this extra money, and it goes back into the general fund, and that doesn't... The business owners seem to say, hey, we don't mind paying, but what are we getting? It's going to general fund, we don't see it. They're repairing a pothole, a mile and a half from my business. So we kind of ought to be thinking about what can we do? What can we do where they can actually see, feel, hey, this percentage of the money, maybe it's, what did we mention when I was talking to you? There was some bright idea I had, and now I forgot.
10 to 20, I think, is...
Well, there was something there, a piece of it where maybe signage, maybe something along those lines to identify, hey, Gladstone Business Center this way, or whatever it is, so that they can see there's something happening. Something more than just the general fund money was the only thought.
And along with that is, if there was a certain portion of the business licenses fees that were dedicated to business development. It could be used in numerous ways, as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor.
Hanging baskets or something like that,
Yeah, making it more attractive in the area. One of them that I thought of is on the city webpage. We could take and do more to promote our local businesses. I mean, I know that we don't have, at one time we did have some businesses listed on our webpage, but I don't think it was 400. So I mean, I think if we had some dedicated funding out of this that we could use, that the business owners would see a benefit to it, some sort of business development.
So it's just, it's something I think we just need to, this was one of many discussions, but I feel, and I don't know what everybody else feels, but I said this at the coffee with the counselor, in light of what's going on, I don't see us pulling everything back and starting over again. I mean, it is what it is. The horse is out of the barn, the damage is done. We can do the best we can to fix it so it doesn't happen again, i.e. notifications, i.e. a special fund, a business fund, where a portion of these business license fees goes, and having another discussion about what we want to see. I think we need to address the 1,200 variation. That seems to me where there's a disparity there, and there's money being lost. And then also, we wanted to talk about maybe that and this on how do we notify these people, and how much do we charge them now. We can't charge them a full year's business license fee. I don't think we can go retroactively and say...
Are you talking about if you find a business that should have been paying?
Right, or like these rental people. We never notified these rental people.
So we have it set up that if you take out a business license, for example, half of a year, you pay half of the fee. So we could, if you wanted to, implement a half fee for these businesses or these people who have never had to adhere to these rules.
I'm not clear if they didn't have to adhere or they weren't aware of the fact that they had to adhere. The half-year fee is if a business starts in the middle of the year and you don't want to charge them the full fee. If they should have paid all along and we didn't know it and they didn't know it, now we found out, they're on the hook for the full year if the council wishes to be aggressive with its code enforcement. They were always liable, we just didn't know about it.
I don't know that, because one of the things that we're talking about is communication. And I think, personally, I would have an issue with sending out a letter, hey, we just realized you're here, and now here's how much it's going to cost you.
What do you think? What do you think you ought to do
Well,
with it?
I think they need to be notified as soon as possible. We ran into an issue with trailer courts, and it's kind of been put on hold until next year for us to address. It's being addressed, and it will have been addressed. I think that getting a notification letter out, whether it be to these 1,200 people here, those 800, excuse me, 800 people there, if we notify them that we believe you are required to have a Gladstone business license, and we believe this is what your cost is going to be, so in January you will be getting a business license, or I think they send them out in December. In December you will be getting an application for a business license. It's at least going to give them some time to be aware of it, to acknowledge it, and come back and yell at us if they don't like it.
Okay, but we're in not even quite in May yet. If we get the notices out, would it be unreasonable to say, listen, here's the bottom line. You've been doing business in the city of Gladstone. You know, we didn't notify you, or you didn't get notification, or whatever the verbiage is.
Right.
And as of August, you pay us half a year fee, and as of December, you'll pay a full year fee. I just don't see letting the whole year go just because we're in May.
We are in May, and I don't know, I mean, if it's up to me to work on these 1,200, it's probably not going to be this next week that I'll get through them.
10 days. You got 10 days, Kim.
Man. And I'll get fined if I'm not done, right?
You know it. What do you guys think? Pat, weigh in.
I have a couple of comments. Part of me, it just burns me that Jolene has done all this work a year and a half ago, came to City Council with this recommendation, got the recommendation, and now we're coming back to Pete and Jolene. And I understand it's a different council, but it doesn't make me happy that we are spinning our wheels on something that maybe the City Council did not do their due diligence, but it was brought to them. She did her job, Pete did his job, and they voted on it and passed it. So part of my heartburn is that. That being said, I think what we have passed is fair and equitable. If you look at River Greens, which is probably 300 apartment units, did they send any complaints, or so they paid, my math is bad, 300, so probably $7,500 bill that they paid without hesitation, because they do it in other places. My question on the property owners in Gladstone is how many of them have just property in Gladstone, or how many have property here and in Milwaukee where they are paying potentially a business tax and a $25 tax as well. The 1,200, that's a lot harder to do. This would be, I think, pretty easy to send a letter out because it's already in the database of you're notified. We changed the code a year and a half ago. You need a business license to run a business in the city, and you need to pay $25 per rental unit. And I think we're spinning our wheels a little bit too much because it is only $25 a piece. So do we go after everybody for $25 a head? No, because it takes, I'm sorry to say, it takes way too long to go after this person on 640 East Exeter that didn't pay. We can't, you would waste way too much money. Steve's really big on balancing how much money do we spend to get the $25 or the $125 if it's only business. So, and I did talk to Lowell, who is the business owner who owns the Gladstone Mobile Home Park, and I thought that you had paid the $25 per unit, or was I incorrect?
No, actually,
But I don't know if I want to...
Right,
that's being addressed.
It's being addressed, and it will be next year.
Okay, so it's something you're working on.
We talked it over. Our attorney is appointed with the city's attorney, and there was a discussion, and my understanding is that it's centered around an improper notification process. And we were shocked. We didn't know this was coming. And when I thought about it, I don't think that it's unfair. But it's my understanding that between the attorneys, everybody considered it more proper to start paying next year instead of this year, largely because of the notification process.
And it was more in the mobile home parks. There was a question, it was pretty clear from the minutes and from the council discussion that apartments wanted to be included as a separate address. Mobile home parks, because they're renting a lot, but they own where they're actually in. So we thought we would clarify code, let it go for a year, and next year make it very clear, if council wished to go that route, that mobile home parks would be included in the future. Mobile home parks also have, as the attorney pointed out, they have some common areas where a particular lot may be with park benches, or maybe the community garden. So there was a question as to whether that kind of lot should be charged as well. So we put the mobile home parks on hold for a year.
And then I think, and last comment was also that I think as a city we didn't do a very good job of notification, but I think as the new city council has learned through all our copies with councilors that we are going to make sure and do a much better job. For instance, the sewer and water rates, I know that when that comes up, it's going to be a 6-month or 12-month, but there's going to be a lot of conversations. And as long as people are paying attention and will get some notification out, they will know, or they will have the opportunity to know on these rates here. I don't think we did as good a job as we could have, but I think it's fair.
I agree mostly with Councilor McMahon. The previous council and Jolene, as they have hashed this out. However, as we've heard from our citizens who we need to listen to, they have some concerns over home occupation and over rental units, and so I think it's appropriate, especially if it's within that narrow window, that we do take those concerns seriously and discuss them as we're doing tonight. My only other comment about rental units, thank you for the business things from other cities. Are we in line with our neighboring cities when it comes to rental units? I mean, are we generally within the same cost? Are we extraordinary? Are we low? I don't get a good feel from reading this if any of that's the case. Can we find that out? I mean, it may not be something you have an answer to tonight, but can we find it out?
I could tell you from looking at it, it's all over the place.
Okay.
Some cities don't charge for the first rental. They only charge for the second and thereon. Some charge $100 right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter, 110, whatever.
Happy Valley seems to say that in here. That
so I mean, it's going to be everywhere. So we're kind of probably on the lower end of short of saying you don't have to pay for the first one.
And Portland's is just send more money. I pay a Portland business tax too. I understand that. But maybe we can look into that a little bit further and have it in front of us so that we can consider it, even if it is all over the board. I mean, is that something that we could look at in a future meeting? Because it's an issue. We've got two folks from two mobile home park and a rental. They're concerned about it. I think that we should know if what we're doing is fair and equitable.
You certainly can look at it.
Well, I think we should see it. I do.
All right.
And that's what we're here for, is discussion tonight. We're not making any decisions, so, I mean, it may be something as simple as taking this information that we got tonight and putting it on a spreadsheet that doesn't have 10,000 words that we got to go through. It's just line by line, and this is what it is. And maybe add a couple others if somebody thinks of some. I don't think it would be that difficult to come up with something like Steve's talking about. I don't think it would be too labor intensive.
Yeah, I wouldn't,
So, I want to make sure I understand, we're going to discuss this again, but is the council asking me to look into this?
If I own an 8-unit apartment building in West Lynn, how much do I pay a year?
Okay.
Tualatin,
So you want me to look
Sherwood,
into
Canby. I would like to see,
Canby? Okay.
well,
All right. So, increase the...
I'd just like to see what other cities are doing and how it compares to Gladstone when it comes to mobile home parks and rental units and the like.
How many you want? 3, 4?
I'll leave that up to Jolene.
And are you prepared to raise the rates if we're
Sure.
100% low?
Which I can tell you we are. But anyway.
I did not say that. I said I wanted to see it so that we know if it's fair and equitable. I mean, if it does show up as being very low, well, you know.
Okay, I think...
We'll take that up.
Well, one thing I wanted to say is the home occupancy. That was a surprise to me, and for me, an unexpected consequence, because I don't feel that they should be paying the $50 permit and then a $100 license. And I think that was something that just wasn't caught in the process when we did this back before. So that's something I would like to readdress when we looks like we're going to be working on this again in the near future. And also I agree that communication sure fell or was lacking, fell through the cracks, and I know already we're doing a better job at communicating with our citizens and business people, and we'll be doing that.
I think one of the things communications has been a problem for a few years here, because we're using the newsletter to get most of the information out. We need a better way of communicating and get some of this important information out other than the newsletter. And I know we've been talking about doing something better, but we haven't come up with any answers yet.
Okay, gentlemen, I think we've kind of talked this one good. Everybody good? Move on to Tri-Cities. Before I leave, I just want to make sure one thing. Are we not going to worry about the absentee rental people right now and have them notified for their pay? For them to pay their business license?
Oh, that's something else I was going to say. I like your ideas. Let them know, say, hey, look, this is something that you're supposed to be doing, and see if we can get a half year out of them. I don't know.
I'm going to advise you that legally they are liable for the full year. They were always liable. You just didn't know about it. So I feel uncomfortable with telling businesses, hey, you're liable for this full year fee, but we're, in our discretion, have decided just to charge half.
Okay. So you're saying the whole year, or nothing?
If they're liable, they're liable. I mean, if the code says, if you are conducting a business, you must pay a business license fee. It's that clear.
True.
And now we can argue whether a rental is conducting a business and all those kinds of side issues, but if they are conducting a business, and I believe they are, if they're renting out something, they're liable for the business license fee.
So does the council have an option to not do anything?
If you want to bring back an ordinance at the next meeting that says if it's, I suppose we can craft some language that makes them a half year, but I'm just saying that currently the way the code reads, they're liable for a full year.
Okay. Well, then,
and then the second part of the question is, do we address the 1,200 and try to narrow that list down and pare it down and do the same thing? I mean, what's your guys' pleasure? Let's.
Out of that 1,200, I would guess that maybe at the far side there's 400. Just wild ass guess.
What? 400 signed up with us.
No, the 1,200 are on that list. Somehow it's connected to 400 businesses within Gladstone. Now that's just a wild number.
If you would like, I will work on this list of 1,200 and see what I can come up with over the next month.
No, I'd appreciate it. That'd be awesome.
Okay, I'll do that.
So we are sending notices out to the rental people, yes? Is that what we're charging Jolene to do?
So we're going to send notices out to notify them, even though they've never heard of this, that they're paying the full amount.
If I understand correctly, that they are renting their property, they're making a profit, an income from the rental of their home? Is that what?
Yep.
According to the code, that's a business. Now, what I think I've heard from you is that it's possible that with respect to rentals, you may want to, as many cities do, carve exemptions, or they reduce the rate, or you get a freebie if you have only one, that sort of thing. And you can do those kinds of things, but your code doesn't currently do that.
Right.
So currently, they're liable, and they're conducting a business.
It would be fair to do it, yeah.
But
Good?
Okay, so I'm doing it.
Yes, everybody's okay? Okay, that's it. Do we want to take a break?
Yes.
Do you guys want to take a quick break?
Well,
Okay,
yes,
we're going to
no,
take a
I
break,
am.
a 7-minute break. It is now 7:55. Welcome back.
Just go home?
Okay, this should go really quick, right? Item number 5 on the regular agenda is discussion of the Tri-City Service District. There is no public testimony at this time. It's a work session. We're just hearing, we're talking figures, facts, flow rates. So, stand by. And who wanted to, you want to start, Pete?
I'll start a little bit and then hand it off to City Councilor Johnson.
I'll try and follow on.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Well, as everyone knows, there's been much discussion about Tri-City governance. It was brought forward by Oregon City. They had House Bill 2800 that would allow an option for a different structure. Right now, the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners sits as the head of the Tri-City Service District. Councilor Johnson has been becoming very active as the council liaison for regional infrastructure issues. We've met with both Oregon City and West staff and had some discussions. Councilor Johnson attended one of the Tri-City Advisory Committee meetings also. I know he's been attending regional. That name on the regional committee is so long it escapes me right now. And obtaining information from Wes regarding the Tri-City Sewer District. It's such a big apple to bite into. I think at this point I'll let City Councilor Johnson talk about what he's found and where he thinks we need to go and what other information we may need.
I will try. It's a little bit like the proverbial how do you eat an elephant? You know, where do you start? So, we with in partnership with Oregon City and Westland, we own a sewer plant as part of the Tri-City Service District. That sewer plant is located across the river in Oregon City. In the last 8-10 years, we've been joined there by Clackamas County Service District number 1, who the history gets a little muddy about, but had some problems with their sewer capacity. I know that Kellogg Creek in Milwaukee has rolled into some of their problems as well. And after a little bit of engineering, discovered that we had some unused capacity in our sewer plant. Decisions were made to allow Clackamas County Service District to bring some of their sewage to the Tri-City plant. Initially, I think it was a rental agreement. Ultimately, Tri-City Service District leased property to Clackamas County Service District number 1 so that CCSD could build more plant on our property. And they built a membrane fiber membrane, what is called a membrane plant, a different technology that produces cleaner water as its output. If it sounds like the history and how this all comes together and where it came from is a little muddy, it's because it is. The documentation is dense to read. Some of it is missing. And although it appears to be legal, there's some question as to how ethical it is to have the same party signing both sides of a contract or an agreement. All of these agreements have been signed because the Board of County Commissioners is in charge of both TCSD and CCSD, so all of the agreements have been signed by the Board of County Commissioners on both sides of the issue. I think the immediate problem is that we as a region appear to be out of sewage capacity or heading in that direction soon. And we are being asked, both as TCSD and CCSD, to discuss solutions to that technical problem. At some point, you have to start asking, how did we get here, and why is this our problem at TCSD when originally we had excess capacity, and now we not only have none, but parts of the plant are near overflowing. Board of County Commissioners Paul Savas told us in a meeting that we had that alarms are going off in parts of the plant, a part called a digester, where they are approaching an overflow situation. There's also a concern that digesters were made to run in parallel, one on, one off, preferably. Now they're being run in series as one big tank. If I got parallel and series backwards, I'm sorry. But they're running it now as one big tank, and it's overflowing, and maintenance becomes a problem because you don't have one to shut off so you can work on the other one. I think that the ask coming from parts of the county that are growing rapidly, like Happy Valley, which is part of CCSD 1, they've made, I believe, in the regional wastewater meeting, the idea that they want rate parity. In other words, those of us that have a pretty good deal with sewage, they want us to pay more so that we can buy more plant, more factory. This is going to become an issue for Gladstone, which has essentially zero growth and had at one point a stable sewer plant, and now does not. And I think that there are forces that are going to ask us to pay more that I'm not sure it's justified for us to pay. As I said before, one of the problems here is that the history is very muddy, including the technical history, including what we have. When I got started into this, West Director Greg Geist offered flow data, and I figured 4 pipes in where I have flow meters and be able to quickly decide, be able to quickly chart what's coming into the plant from the 4 different entities, Gladstone, Oregon City, Westland, and CCSD number 1. I've gotten into that farther. I have lots of spreadsheets. I'm not sure that I really have what I need yet. I'm getting out of my comfort level and my knowledge. I'm not an engineer. And it appears that in order to get a chart that would show lines of how inflows into the plant have increased or decreased over time would be, mathematics would be involved, and there's some question as to whether all of the data exists. Meters have not been on all pipes. Now they are on some, they aren't on others. Some of it has to be calculated. And I'd gotten to a point where I figured I'm running out of my experience, and while I can keep asking a million questions, at some point I will be using up too much of county staff's time, city staff's time, and wanted to take a step back and bring this to the Gladstone City Council, because I think it's important that we all know about this and are aware of this, because there's some fairly large numbers behind it. There is also the ongoing question of governance, like I said, that both sides are signing the same agreements. This is an Oregon City concern. They've brought it to us. We've been a little slow to pick up on it. I'm sorry. We're new at this. And that governance issue is also a part of this, and there is tension with the governance issue and the you're going to have to pay more issue, and there are big dollars involved. And my concern is that this could end up in front of a judge someplace in a very unhappy situation. I think we'd all like to avoid that if we can, but as we're learning, sometimes that's not the case. We probably need to be prepared that something like that could happen. I would like to try to get more data, and I think one of the ways to get that more data is for Gladstone to hire its own engineering resources, at least at a fairly high level. I don't know that we need to spend a whole lot of money on that, but if nothing else, to interface with West's resources, ask the right questions. I think the data is important. I think it's important that we know how inflows into the plant have changed over time, hopefully 10 years or more. I think it's important that we know, or try to know, what the status of our plant, the Tri-City plant, was before all of this started, and how population growth has or has not affected our part of this plant. I think we need to have those discussions with people who have more engineering experience than certainly I do, and see if we can't start to fill in the blanks where they are missing. I'll say one more thing. There are water quality issues. When we talk about effluent, my understanding is from a tour of exactly one sewer plant that I've been on, the effluent is essentially water. It appears to me that the water that comes out of the plant could, not advocating this, but could probably be drunk reasonably safely by human beings. It's not potable water, but my point is it's not brown, gray gunk going into a pipe and going into the Willamette River. I mean, it looks, smells, and acts like water. The ducks and the geese seem to think so as well. Probably the biggest challenge you would have if you drank it is whatever critters the ducks and the geese are putting into it. Our water coming out of our plant meets an older standard. When Moore Plant was built on that facility by CCSD, the membrane plant, we had to meet a newer standard of water quality, and that membrane plant helps us to do that by diluting the outflows from TCSD. We're able to meet that newer standard. So if at some point in time CCSD were to do something else, go someplace else, we would now be stuck with a problem that we're required to meet higher water quality standards. I think that's it. There might be more, but I want to make sure that the council understands that this really is a real issue, and to make sure that we keep an eye on it.
You were at the last, I don't know the title, Clearwater or whatever, with Oregon City.
Regional wastewater,
Right.
something.
Which involved CCSD 1 and us.
Yes.
And Westland was there, Oregon City was there.
We sat on one side of the room. I sat next to Oregon City Mayor Holliday. There was a Westland City Councilor next to him, and I also sat next to Greg Geist. On the other side of the room was Happy Valley, representative from unincorporated Clackamas County, representative from Milwaukee. I might have missed somebody, and Paul Savas was there as well. So.
And what was, I mean, how was the meeting? I mean, I'm kind of curious. Is this just, you know, still contentious, or is there some dialogue, or is
there was some contention there. And the discussion, I think, was along the lines of where I started, that we've had growth within the region. The sewer plant is not quite up to where it needs to be. We need to look at improvements and growth. There was a lot of talk about growth and rate parity. I believe that mostly came from the Happy Valley representative, though Commissioner Paul Savas also discussed growth, and at some point I said, Gladstone hasn't grown, then I don't think we should be paying for the growth of these other cities. That's kind of where we went, and
Is the rate parity tied with the improvements? Can one be done without the other, or is it just like, well, we got to improve, and when we improve, we're going to be we're all going to make everybody equal?
If I had to take a guess, I would guess that it's Clackamas County's general direction to merge all of this, including all of the management and all of the governance. That would be my guess, that that's where they are headed with this. If I'm correct in that guess, I'm not sure that would be good for Gladstone, because it would further dilute our involvement in such an organization. I think that Clackamas County, CCSD, one of their fundamental problems is, and has always been, that they don't have any place else to go. That this is the place. That building a new sewer plant in its entirety would be monstrously expensive. I'm not sure how much of that is our problem, but that's, I think, where some of this has come from. Lance Powelson from Oregon City provided us with some minutes from something called the Tri-City Service District Citizen Sounding Board from 2006. And in here it says that last night the Citizen Advisory Council for CCSD 1 made their recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners to build a new plant but continue diversion agreement with Tri-City in the interim. I believe that was back when we were renting space. And I'm not sure if they're referring to the membrane fiber plant that was ultimately built on the Tri-City location, or if they were talking about building their own plant. So there was some discussion even back then on that.
So the property is owned by Tri-Cities. Is that right?
That is my understanding. Yeah,
okay.
That Tri-City owns the plant.
Owns the plant.
Owns the property.
The property, and part of the plant though is CCSD number 1, and part of it is Tri-City.
Tri-City owns the entire property, and it owns the older plant. CCSD has leased property from Tri-City, and that's in the 2008 agreement.
Right.
They have leased property from Tri-City and have built the membrane fiber plant on it. More modern technology.
I've been to a couple of the meetings with Steve, tried to go through some of this data, and I think how does one person eat an elephant doesn't fit. It's how does one person eat 3 elephants or 4 elephants. There are pieces of this. What Steve's talking about now is just the raw data and finding out where we are and how we got here. You know, who put us here, how did, you know, and it's not a blame thing, it's a matter of how much is coming into the plant and where it's coming from. Then there's the second piece of, we have this problem, we need more capacity. So how are we going to fix the capacity issue? And then comes in the House Bill 2800 that Oregon City brought up, is the governance issue, because who's going to decide how we pay for this and who pays for this, and who's going to decide who pays what share? So there's all different parts of this, and I commend Councilor Johnson for taking this on, because I'm just trying to get caught up with it, and it's a huge undertaking. I think one of his thoughts that he mentioned was if we could get some sort of professional service that could take the data that we've already got and put it into something that we as a council can understand, I think would be very beneficial. And then it would also show what data is missing that we could request and find out that it's either not available, they don't have it, or, yeah, we've got it, and here it is. And then we can plug that in, because there's some, I mean, I think the first agreement I seen was 99. I've read, I don't know, several contracts between 99 and 2011, I think was the last one I seen, and they've all got addendums to them, and then they've got this and they've got that. So there's just all kinds of pieces here that are coming into play, and as Steve said, as a council, we're going to have to make some really tough decisions that are going to go on to the ratepayers of our city for probably some years, along with everything else that we've got going. And I think we want to make the best decision we can. I don't think we need to hire somebody that's going to be, you know, this isn't going to be a year-long master plan. This is going to be, hopefully Steve can take the time and sit down with them and go, here's what I've learned, here's what I've got. Can you put this on a bar graph or a pie chart? You know, that type of thing, and tell us what other information that would be important to us to know. We've met with Oregon City, and they've got some very definite direction. We've met with Clackamas CCSD number 1. They've got some very definite direction, and they've both got good data, but it doesn't always line up with what the other side's saying, and I think we're going to have to do our due diligence in order to make some of these big decisions we're going to have to make.
I've got a couple questions too, but go ahead.
The one question I have is, so when we entered into the original agreement to Tri-Cities to get CCSD 1, we are equal one-third partners.
Right.
For everything. Yes?
I'm not sure that's correct. I haven't seen this data that people are talking about. I'm not sure we've got it, other than a bill or something, or annual fees.
I meant the original agreement.
The
original agreement. We're equal one-third, even though we knew
back in 1980
we weren't going to grow like Oregon City or Westland would grow. So we're saddled with that no matter what.
We're one-third ownership.
Are we sure about that?
I'm not sure about that
myself. At least that's what I felt.
We've called Tri-Cities, but I've read all these darn things, okay, and I don't see anything in there that gives a .33 or a one-third ownership, okay. It's based on, in fact, one of the items is the allocation percentage shall be defined by a supplemental agreement.
Tom, these agreements are after TCSD was already formed. This is when CCSD come in. I think what the mayor is asking is, when TCSD was originally formed, are we one-third owner in that plant?
Where were we in that picture?
And I don't think we've got any data in here or that I've ever seen.
Well, I think technically the district owns the asset. As part of the advisory committee, we have 1/4 vote. There's Oregon City, Gladstone, Westland, and the West Director has a vote on the advisory committee. So that's my understanding.
I guess what I'm getting at is, and I've asked this question before, so take CCSD out of the equation, standalone, I know we would have to add and all this stuff, but are we saddled with West Lynn and Oregon City growing at their rate, at this exponential rate, and we are here? Our rates are directly impacted by their capacity. It would be, if without CCSD 1, correct. I mean, our rates are going to increase. They're not going to stay the same, I would assume. I mean, I haven't read it anywhere. That's why I'm asking the question. Is there some kind of a...
Until we reach capacity, I mean, our rates are based on operation and maintenance. Growth rate won't come into effect until we reach capacity. If CCSD was not involved, we paid for the plant, we built the plant, it's there. So it's the operation and maintenance is the only thing we've got. As that goes up, yeah, there's going to be increases. But as far as the capacity issue, to this point, we have not got to that point where the three entities would need to decide what we would do to fix the capacity issue amongst the three entities of Tri-Cities.
Well, there are master plans that talk about how the growth should happen at the plant. And already we're talking about, and we've, in the last couple of years, started raising rates to get in a better financial position to borrow money to do some of these improvements. So that's already starting. And as the mayor is getting to, I think, so far our rates have remained the same, I think with the exception that the Oregon City right-of-way fee is only charged to Oregon City residents and not Gladstone and West Lynn.
One of the assertions made was that because we didn't do a good job of minding the store for future expansion, that we kept the rates low, and that's why, in part, that's why we're going to be forced to bite the bullet and pay a big amount. Is there, what's you guys,
for a certain period of time, yes, we were getting some money from CCSD. One, the rates were kept artificially low, drawing on some of that money to operate. Now we're to the point where the rate is covering operations and maintenance, but they're talking about increasing the rate from this point forward to help put us in a better financial situation for newer expansion.
Plant expansion, yeah.
And when you talk about the rate and the rate parity, that's one entity. But when you talk about who's going to make the decision of what Gladstone's rate is, then that turns around and comes back to the governance issue. If it goes to a regional facility, there will be several people at the table, and as Commissioner Johnson mentioned, our vote will be diluted. Now, it may cost a whole lot less when you spread the costs out over that many people, and it may not be so bad, but it's something that we need to look at, is what we want to do with that. But that's a completely separate animal from what...
Yeah. As you're talking about this, a fundamental question, I think, is Tri-City Service District out of capacity? And if it's not, is it headed for out of capacity? And that's when you take CCSD out of the picture completely. That the answer to that question is kind of murky. It's not clear to me at all. I've heard many people speak in very absolute terms that, absolutely out, absolutely not, and I don't know exactly what we're looking at there. There is always, and it comes up in this conversation, the issue I talked about the quality of the effluent coming out of the plant, and that CCSD's plant puts out cleaner effluent, and so in order to meet the environmental regulations, we're diluting the effluent from Tri-City with effluent from CCSD number 1. Even if you take that issue out of it, the current, are we about to run out of capacity for Tri-City? And if not, when are we expected to do that? It's the answer to those questions is simply not clear.
Right. And I think what the advisory committee has been told up to this point is that there are 2 different capacity issues. One's with solids, and that's where we're they're telling us we're hitting the ceiling, and then liquids, where we do have some additional capacity.
But right now, that's combined with CCSD's solids.
I believe so.
Neil? I was going to ask, end of last week, Tom, you had asked for a addendum or some additional information that was mentioned in here, and we're waiting for Wes to come up with it. Did we ever get that?
We got something. Jolene found it. Amendment number 1 to the IGA, which was 2011, and they came up with that, and it's kind of pretty simple here. 3.2 allocation formulas, and the biggest thing I can understand here, one sentence: the allocation formula shall be multiplied by the plant OEM to arrive at the sharing of costs. So, somebody, I believe at Wes, is calculating what they are saying the flows are from the different areas, of which, according to this formula, 80% of it is due to TCSD, and 20% is to CCS number 1. And to me, I've talked in a couple of these meetings, and people haven't seen it as simple as I have, which means I must be really wrong. But if we know, and what Steve's asking for from the lawyer, I would like to suggest getting there, okay? If we know the percentage of flow of one type, whatever it be, the water, the solids, or whatever, okay, and to determine that, if we know whatever entity or whatever town, okay, whether it be Gladstone or Oregon City or Westland or Happy Valley, whatever, okay, if we know that one produces, and I'm going to say to start with, I don't think the flow data is there actually, but I may be wrong on that. But if we know that Westland spent $400,000 on it, and somebody else spent $200,000, whatever, and the total cost is $1 million, okay, then the percentage of each entity is going to be a certain amount. If we really know what that entity is, what that percentage is, then I think it's easier to talk. But right now, we really don't know. I don't know anyway. And so, how am I going to talk about this? Well, they say, well, we need to improve our governance and we need to get all this wording straight. What I want to know is what percent am I supposed to pay? And what percent of the bundle am I really responsible for? You know, am I 10% or 80%? And how about Westland and so on? And based on that, it really will show the magnitude of the problem one way or the other. And as far as the costs, in my mind, go to, I'm going to make it simple, but there's 3 different types: maintenance, technology improvements, and capacity. Each person should pay the appropriate percentage of their flow to maintenance and for technology improvements. Okay? But capacity is another game. In capacity, if the plant was designed for a certain amount, and over the last 10 years, Gladstone has not improved or increased their amount, then why is Gladstone responsible for it at all? The other capacities that are using it and have gone above what they originally said they were going to do, to me, should share in that cost. So
then following up on that, a question I had, which I'm not sure with all this going back and forth. Do they know on each? I don't know. They got a dozen pipes going into it. How much is flowing in on every one of those pipes?
I'm only guessing on this one. Wes knows the total amount. Okay, whether they're measuring it by line, I would hope they are, so they are in fact charging the certain entity the right amount. However, I would be surprised if that they have that data.
I know the answer. And not every pipe going into the plant has a flow meter on it.
Why not?
Good question.
I guess I need to take a day off from work and go take a tour.
That's
or on the first day of summer.
I would recommend that.
Yes, Mr.
My understanding is that not every pipe has a flow meter on it.
Well, that's criminal.
Easy does it.
Well, I'm not one to pay any more than I have to, and if others are sending more to it than what's coming from West Clarendon, then that's not fair. And we're getting, well, I won't go there.
So what happens? Maybe ours is one that doesn't have a meter on it.
No, ours does. Ours does, yeah.
Of course.
The stuff that's coming from the east, Happy Valley, Damascus, that area up there, which is growing leaps and bounds. Is that a separate entity or is that being added to Oregon cities, or?
That is CCSD #1.
Yeah.
Happy Valley, parts of Damascus, unincorporated
monitored separately then.
That's a
What's coming into the plant.
Separate pipe coming into the plant, yes.
And they're based on a rental lease agreement, however you want to call it.
So if you need a plant expansion, they should be part of it. If we're meeting capacity now, shouldn't they be part of the equation as far as paying for it?
But I mean, the question is the expansion ours? I mean, if we're not expanding and they are, then who needs to really be paying for this? And I think that if you got a chart, if you can get the data and put together a chart, you're going to see that CCSD has been increasing dramatically over time. But I don't have that data in front of me yet, so.
Pat, you were leaning forward.
Uh-oh. A couple comments. Number one, you can't go back. We cannot build a sewer plant. We are part of Tri-Cities, Clackamas County Sewer District 1. Parity is okay. We are all in this boat together. Whether we end up paying a little bit more because we end up paying a little bit more, we're still in it all together, whether we like it or not. Another question emerged, so to me, it makes more sense instead of having Clackamas County Sewer District 1 and Tri-Cities Sewer District, you should merge them at some point. I don't know if that's anything that's been discussed at all.
District.
Is that something that's been...
I think that's the question that's been danced around, but it hasn't been said exactly like that.
To me, the sewer plant is a countywide issue. We have to do something with it. We can't dump it in the river anymore. To me, it's a countywide thing that it would make sense to me that that's something that the county finally bucks up and says, you know what, we're going to take care of this. They did it with the libraries, though it was a vote of went through of the people. But, and honestly, I think parity is going to be okay. I don't think it's going to kill us. and you know, I'd be interested to see what the rates are, what their anticipated increases are. We're talking, you know, we don't know. I think your famous word is we don't know what we don't know, but no, that's yours. But so that would be my other question would be, you know, is it just going to be $10 a month to the city because it's spread out over the 300,000 people of Clackamas County, or however big all the customers are that are using it. So, and then that's what the sewer. Part of this also I read in here was them wanting to increase the system development charges, which makes a lot of sense to me. They should really raise those up, and then you are at least getting a bit more of a bite from the folks that are making the need for a bigger sewer plant.
I would say two things. One is, it's just a guess, but I think that rate parity means much more expensive sewer charges to the people of Gladstone. We're taking guesses, and we don't have all the facts in front of us, but I think it will be an uncomfortably high amount. And we already, at Coffee with a Counselor and elsewhere, we've heard people talking about how high our sewer and water rates are now. They aren't, we know that, but there's already a certain amount of discomfort with that. And I'll leave it at that.
I think there are numbers, we don't have it in this packet, but I think in one of the, I forget where, but there are the projected rates based on the improvements that are going to be done. And kind of what I think part of brought this to the head was the accelerated, part of the argument was that these projections weren't supposed to take place till, 2025 or 2030 and then recently those numbers have been moved up. We need to do it more like 2017 instead of 2025, and so that kind of started the ball rolling, I think. But there are numbers out there about what it is now, what it looks like, and I think there's two modules. One, I think there's two different rate figures, one based on more of a parity figure and one based on leaving us at
Well, and I think there was also something to do, and I may be mistaken on this, but it seems to me there was something about doing it with rates or doing it with bonds. There was some...
Right, it was all in that packet. Yeah. I forget where we got it from, but we had it.
I will forward that back on to you.
So, Tom, did we get what you got there from 2011?
That was in our email.
It was emailed.
It was emailed? Okay.
Yeah. You get my copy.
Well, thank you.
I'll print another one.
Okay, well, that was,
So, what do we want to do?
I guess it's going to be how much cost are we going to associate with trying to get this data if we don't think, in my mind, if we don't have the flow meters on everything, then we're going to get an incomplete report. How can the guy say, yeah, you guys are getting hosed, if we don't have the numbers going in from this pipe or that pipe? That is the crux of the problem.
If you have a total amount in, and the majority of the pipes are metered, you're going to get some idea, and I believe that's part of the calculations that they explained to us at one of our meetings at some point is, well, we got flow data here, here, and here, and then we can extrapolate out from the total volume that this would be this, and so I think they can get there.
Well, wouldn't we be able to show what we've got the total, and we know what we are, we subtract that, isn't that all we need?
No, because we're part of Oregon City and West Lynn.
Yeah.
Okay,
by
that's
virtue
true.
of the whole thing.
Right,
And
okay.
So I don't know. I guess my whole thing is cost. How much are we going to invest to try to get more numbers of what I've seen? Everybody's got their own set of numbers and their own set of engineers that have gone through this thing. So I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I want to see, man, how much is that going to cost us to do this engineering?
I would like the consensus of the council to go out and find those numbers, and bring it back to the council at a future meeting.
So we're just finding out how much it would cost to get an engineer to look at it.
Yes.
So I'm not opposed to that.
I'm good.
Because it's just a little time.
Yep, I'm good with it.
I don't have a problem with that.
All right,
And is
gentlemen.
that something you're going to do, or is that something we're going to direct staff to do?
I would be happy to work with staff to do that.
Okay. Well, thank you. That was item number 5, and the final item on the regular agenda is item number 6, discussion of production of minutes. No public testimony at this time.
As we upgrade our piping in the ground, because a lot of our pipes are broken, we got groundwater coming in and adding to that, will that change our flow rate to the plant when we get...
It'll change it.
It'll should reduce
It'll reduce it. Yes.
Yeah.
See, look at that. We are freaking sewer experts.
That's just plumb scary.
Can we...
I learned a new
Who
word,
wanted to start this? Pete, you?
I'll start. As most of you know, I believe all of you know, that we contract with individuals to produce the minutes for both City Council and the Planning Commission. We've gone through a few people. We're having trouble finding a new person at this point in time. I've had some conversations with a couple city councilors in the past about, the need for minutes. It's my understanding that legally we don't have to produce written minutes. We could rely on an audio or video audio recording. We still have to comply with retention records, which for a city council meeting, we have to keep that record forever.
So we wouldn't have any written minutes in our packet?
Well, that's an option. I want to get some discussion going so we see what the comfort level of City Council is. Assistant City Administrator Morishita has been investigating other options. I believe she's identified a company that does basically transcriptions and produces minutes for entities. It's much, I understand it's more expensive than what we've been paying in the past. There are pros and cons to going with the audio-video recording. Some staff, Tammy Bannock, has mentioned, well, if we go this way and you tell me, okay, go back into the record and find certain instances where we talked about dog parks or whatever the issue may be, it's going to be more difficult to do without the written minutes. So that needs to be taken into account. Also, we've had debates with City Council and the Planning Commission in the past, I believe, as to what level of minutes we want if we stick with the written minutes. Our minutes are very detailed when you compare them to other jurisdictions, which is great when you're searching the record and wanting to find what the intent of City Council or the Planning Commission was. However, it takes considerable amount of time to produce minutes that way. I believe our person indicated 8 to 10 hours per meeting. Is that right, Jolene?
Or she was only charging us, the last individual was only charging us half of the time because she felt that she was too slow, but we should figure that it should be twice as much.
So we're trying to get a feel for, first of all, is City Council more comfortable with written minutes or a video or audio recording? That's question number one. If we stick with the written minutes, I think we're going to have to go with the company Jolene identified to produce them.
Well, how much are you talking about doing that?
With minutes?
If we go to the outside company, because there wasn't anything mentioned in here money-wise.
So, I've checked into it, and it varies from company to company, but the base fee for most of these professional companies to do minutes, the base fee is $1 to $1.50 per minute.
Okay.
Per minute of recording or per minute of...
Per minute of recording.
Okay.
Well, that's short of $200,
that's not that bad.
No. So what were you paying then?
$20 an hour.
Well,
So, okay.
Well, I'd like to say maybe we could do it, use that in as the kicker. We could say brought to you by the Gladstone Business Association owners for their extra $25 a month that they've been...
Bam! Now we're cooking.
Then we're acknowledging the extra funds is going somewhere very appropriate.
Right. So,
Is-
I like that.
Is there a way, I mean, technology is coming, and I understand the searching of the records. For me, it's a lot easier to go through the minutes than it is to go online, download the video or whatever, and do all that. Is there a cost-effective way to do a combination of the two? To have our minutes not nearly not accurate, that's not the right word.
Simplify them. Detailed.
Yeah, not nearly as detailed, and have, timestamps in the minutes with a table of contents, and do more electronically and have a more condensed version of our minutes, that it would make it easy to use the minutes to find something later.
So I've looked into as far as time-stamping the recording, and that's not possible with the recording equipment that we use now. So that would involve purchasing another computer system to do minutes. So that doesn't seem like a very good use of money, since this one is rather on the newer side. As far as having the minutes more generic, having done the minutes before, I can tell you that although that sounds like a good idea, it's problematic, because now you have to listen to the whole conversation, the whole discussion, and then try to condense it into something smaller, into what you think it is, which may or may not be accurate, and then you have to go back continually, well, did I get this right, did I get that right? It ends up being more lengthy. Although it seems silly that it would, it does.
Bad idea, Kim, would have been enough.
Yeah. No, not necessarily. I mean, one thing, I really want to keep written minutes. And I spent the last 2 days talked to city recorders from our neighboring cities, Estacada, Sandy, and Sherwood, where they all do it in-house. And one, I think it was Ms. Carrie out at Estacada. She mentioned a program, but generally what she does is, the recorded video, and then she's there, she jots down different things, and then the next morning, while it's still fresh, she takes an hour or two and all three of them do summary. They don't do the word by word like we do. Like when I say that testified, instead of what we would get at our next meeting as a verbatim, basically it would have been a couple of lines that she had concerns about this rate going up and paying this much, had 12 units, that kind of thing. And so everyone that I talk to has done it in-house. And I understand under our current staffing level that isn't practical. But something that I've been pushing for the last couple of years is bring somebody additional help into the city hall, to help out at for Elizabeth when she's not there, helping out with accounting so that we can get some more checks and balances there, and could also do some other administrative stuff. I was talking with one of them that the assistant recorder does the work, does the minutes, is only part-time, but also helps her time is flexible, so she works that evening of the meeting, but also helps out picking up, setting up the room, doing this and that we're having Jolene doing at a higher rate of pay instead of someone that would be making less. And so that's what I would advocate, and I know it's budget season, and something that I would like to discuss more next week at the Budget Committee.
So, a 3-hour meeting is 180 minutes, if my math is correct, and go to the high side, so $2 a minute. So we're talking $360 to do very good minutes, it sounds like. To me, that is way easier than, that's the simplest and easiest way. I've looked at the audio before, and I don't know if my computer's that old, but I can't seem to fast forward any of it. So when I want to watch the audio, I got to start at the beginning. And
the video is like that. That's why we put the audio on there, so you can fast forward. But the video is
to me, the 360 twice a month for us, and then maybe another 360 for the Planning Commission. That's money well spent.
And remember, that's base fee. It goes up.
To
I'm not quite sure, because a lot of the companies do transcription for medical terminal minutes or like police department stuff. So they're used to dealing with someone with one person doing minutes or one person speaking or a couple of people speaking. We have so many that it'll go up because they'll have to figure out who's speaking and who's saying what. So I just want to make it clear that that's the base fee and it could go up.
Well, so I guess the answer or the question there is, what's the price, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just one question on, like, how much, at one point in time, did we not have Willamette Falls TV doing this?
Not since I've been here.
No, Mayor Byers had talked about that, but I don't think the city ever went with Willamette Falls. It's my understanding.
We were a member of Willamette Falls for a number of years, and it was, I think it was on our property tax, I believe is where it was at. I won't swear to that, but it was, we paid to be a member of Willamette Falls. You could come in and use it, and then by being a member, they would come and do your council meetings, but I don't know whether there was additional charges to that.
I don't believe they ever came in and did our council.
No, they never did come in and do ours that I'm aware of.
So I can give
All
you
they're
a
going
little
to do
history
is
on it.
videotape it.
Yeah. Well, back, it was the fees from Comcast went to pay for our portion of the Willamette Falls studio and that. And then back in the early mid-'90s, when we were in that recession, the council elected to leave Willamette Falls and just keep that money in our general fund. And you're right, we never have been on there where they taped, like with Oregon City and West Lynn.
I think there were also some managerial problems with the Willamette Falls, and there were some questions of impropriety, and the money was leaking out, and we abandoned ship about that point in time as well.
True.
So some of that was going on as well.
Right, that was in the mid-'90s.
It's my belief that some of that's gotten cleaned up now, so I know that maybe we should look at it again, but
that still wouldn't solve our minutes issues.
No, no. Sorry.
Well, if you want written minutes, that wouldn't solve the issue.
So...
But if you look at these other websites, when you look at, if you click on an item, if you clicked on this item that we're talking about right now, on their little thing, it would take you right to that session of us talking. I mean, and every item goes directly to that portion of the thing where you could listen to that, whatever they were saying about Tri-Cities water service sewer thing.
Now, is that on Willamette Falls' webpage?
I've looked at Westland, Lake Oswego,
Okay, it was on the city websites where you found it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm clicking on something. I don't know what I'm clicking on. It's done by someone. So I'm assuming, doesn't Willamette Falls do Oregon Cities and Westland?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, my question was more the retention thing. If it's under Willamette Falls' jurisdiction hanging on to it, that's...
Well, we have to keep a record here.
So, I'm sorry.
Well, no, I just was wanting to, just like I say, I think we need to stay with written. It was really helpful looking back with the licenses at the minutes from that meeting when it was discussed in the past, rather than trying to go back and watch it on a video. Sorry.
What is the current minimum wage in Oregon?
$9.25.
Okay. If you use some fudge factors and say that it costs $500 a meeting to do minutes, you end up with $1,500 per month, which by my math is $8.67, meaning close to minimum wage. That's starting to sound like a part-time job. That if you had other duties, maybe what Councilor Reisner is talking about becomes doable. I don't know. But just a thought, if it's really that expensive, you're getting into a point where there might be some reason to hire an employee. If the cost difference between doing a verbose style of minutes and a summary style of minutes is the same, and if in fact summary style is more expensive, would be my preference to stay at the verbose style. I think it's easier to read as well.
Well, let me clarify this. The summary style had a lot of information in it. If you want a summary style that essentially said, Tammy Stemple spoke about the possibility for trees being paid for a grant. I mean, just that basic, virtually nothing, that's not difficult. But if you want a bunch of information included in a summary style, that's where it becomes problematic.
And determining what to put in it.
Yes.
What they said this, but
Yes.
what did they actually mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, what are we telling Jolene to do? Or Pete, or both?
Has anybody priced out the computer system? I know we got a fairly new one.
I think part of why we wanted to have the discussion tonight was to really determine, do you like the written minutes, or, should we investigate video or audio more robustly? I think what I'm hearing is consensus for written minutes. Is that?
For now.
Okay, so with that, we'll pursue options to make that happen. But we didn't want to spend a lot of staff time looking into options that weren't preferable to counselors.
Technology grows by leaps and bounds. We should always keep an eye out for that. But I think for now, in my opinion, we should stay with written minutes.
You want me to get a price? Is that what I'm hearing? You want a price and come back with some dollar figures before it's... And you're okay when I'm doing this, that the minutes are just hanging out there?
Mm-hmm. Well, no, and that was my next question, is we need minutes. I mean, this basically, from my understanding, is the last minutes we will receive until we do something. And we've had how many meetings? We've had at least 2 meetings, maybe 3. Planning Commission has had at least 1. And we're going to wait another meeting to get pricing, and then hiring somebody. We're not going to have meeting minutes for 3 months.
Written meeting minutes.
Any meeting minutes.
Well,
but they're not official minutes that we approve.
As long as you're recording and videoing, you don't have to have the written minutes, but I don't know of any city, I'm not sure about Portland, but I don't know of any other city, and certainly none of our clients rely only on audio and video that I'm aware of. We all have written minutes now, as you guys have pointed out. You're the most detailed by far of any minutes, if any of our clients, which is good and bad. I mean, the great thing is, as you said, you can go back and look at everything, you know exactly what was said, but it is very time-consuming to produce them, of course.
My main point for bringing that up is we've got a consensus that we would like written minutes. So I would think that rather than waiting for them to come back with something, I would prefer to send staff out to figure out which is the best for the city, whether it be to hire a professional company to do just our minutes, or whether we hire a part-time person to come in and do our minutes, or whether we hire a full-time person to do our minutes and other duties. I mean...
How about, in the interim, staff discretion so that we get our minutes? Use best judgment and get us minutes in the interim while we're waiting for numbers to come back.
I'll tell you, we're not overstaffed in here from what we saw this weekend. We did a tour of a couple different agencies, and they're got triple the number that we've got. I mean, for me to look at what we've got and wonder how we can do our job and do it well for the 3 or 4 people that we've got on staff. Other cities have got, like I say, double or triple the numbers we've got. One of them's got a staff of 40. So, I mean, I think we can afford another person.
Well, even if we hire someone, I mean, there would be a process and time would pass. So we still have the problem in the interim of how we're going to get minutes.
So I propose what we do is you give me the authority to go out, find a professional company to do the minutes, and look for a company that can do them as we need them for the best possible price I can get. And then you can all decide, because it's budget season, if you want to continue to do that or if you want to hire someone or what. But at least until you make that decision officially, we're going to get the minutes that we have done, and we're going to keep on top of it. How's that sound?
Yes.
Sounds
All
good.
right.
Good by me.
Good job, George.
Okay. Well, that about wraps up number 6. Let's move on to business from the council, starting with Mr. Reisner.
Sure.
Wow.
You okay?
Yeah.
Mixing it up. So recently, last week, we had the Traffic Safety Commission meet, and I've got Ken Moore, who's a retired OSP officer, is interested in photo radar. He actually does that on the side for Beaverton, and so he's looking into information just in a preliminary mode is to see if it's something that's doable for us. And then they're also interested in the maybe changing their role from a Traffic Safety Commission to a Public Safety Advisory Commission. I provided them some information that they're looking through, and we're going to do some more talking on that at our next meeting, June 22nd. Participated in the city cleanup, which I thought was really great. Looks nice around City Hall. And attended my first coffee with the council last night. We had about 4 citizens joined us. Lieutenant Jolly was there, talked about some code enforcement and other things, and look forward to attending next month and on down the way. So, and have a great week.
Councilor Johnson.
Oh, you're really going to shake it up tonight. Oh, my goodness gracious sakes.
Ready to go and...
Yeah, you had Pat all fired up. We've been attending the City Hall Police Department committee meetings. We've got a strong group there that's doing good work. Looks like only one of them is left, but we chased everyone else out. One of the things I wanted to discuss, 2 of the things. One is our direction to that committee was not including real estate and location. Is that true? They have had some discussions and had some difficulties with that. And I want to make sure that we're focusing on other things besides location and real estate. If I share that is the direction of the council, is that fair? I think that's what we did originally, was it not? And ask them to avoid discussions about real estate and location for now.
Right. I think what we can tell them is, okay, we think there's an area where we can put all 3 under one roof. We think there's an area for 2 or 1.
Right.
That
right.
sort of thing.
Okay. All right. Is that I see heads nodding, so, all right, okay.
Everybody wants to know.
Yes, I understand that, but there are some negotiational things that will cause us grief if we let that happen. Also, at the last City Hall Police Department Committee meeting, we talked about when the committee should present its findings. I think we talked in terms of the June 9th meeting, but I'm not sure if that's what staff has in mind, or if we need to do it sooner or later, or...
I think that can work just fine. The critical thing we have to do is have enough time for City Council to consider a ballot measure before August, when the paperwork has to be in. So that means the city attorney has to do some work on language, City Council has to have some time to debate it, get public input, and then a decision can be made.
And then questions on, let me choose my words carefully here, the ongoing Lake Oswego Tigard saga. I saw a memo that suggested that they have somewhat of a snafu underground and that it's causing them difficulties. Again, I'm choosing my language very carefully. Is this something we're going to hear about, or...
Well, I've had one communication with the city councilor asking me to check the agreement with Lake Oswego. I'm in the process of doing that to see if there's a difference in the agreement we have between boring and open cut. So I'm pursuing that right now. An issue that might come before City Council again may be a permit to work at night. I still need more specifics on that, but so City Council could have that before it sometime soon.
Okay, all right. I'm sure it's listed someplace. What time is the Budget Committee meeting on Tuesday? Is it 6:30 or 7?
I believe 6:30.
6:30, okay.
I'll double check that, but
And the last thing I have is, Jolene, do we have a new coffee with a counselor calendar?
I can provide you one.
Okay, I don't know if it's been updated or not, but if we could get an updated copy, that's a low priority, but just want to put that request in. That's all I have, thank you.
Well, I don't have anything, but...
All right.
The one thing I had for Pete, I think, is, and all the city staff has left, the discussion I'd like to have at some point is there a need to have city staff here, in particular department heads, on days like today where there's nothing that is affecting their department? So I'd like, because they then use comp time or something for their time here, so I think that it might be better spent that instead of them sitting here for 3 hours listening to us talk about stuff that doesn't affect their department at all, that maybe we look at just having them here on the normal city council meeting.
So would you like them at the regular city council meeting no matter what, or do we want to make it topic specific for all meetings?
You know, I'd be all right if it was just topic specific. I mean, they got full days. I don't know if we need to pull them in here for 3 hours. Do they get a one-to-one when they're here?
For the regular meeting of the month, they don't earn any comp time. Any other meeting besides that second Tuesday, they do, and it's one-to-one.
Okay. So I mean, I think that's something to be discussed, especially on today's meeting. I don't know if at some point.
I see a lot of heads nodding. So on the fourth meeting of the month, if there's not a direct topic to that department, is everyone okay with me telling them to stay home?
Yeah. But on the second meeting of the month, or the first meeting of the month on the second Tuesday, they would still be there for every meeting.
We can do that, if that's your preference.
Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, for now, but
Yeah.
I think we could have a discussion. I don't know, even if they're not getting compensated, really, what's the point in making them sit here for nothing that impacts them? I don't know.
But they get compensated on the second Tuesday, don't they?
Right,
Yeah.
but not on the first Tuesday, is what I'm saying.
Well,
I mean,
second Tuesday or second meeting?
The first meeting on the second Tuesday, how does their time...
They do not earn comp time for that. It's just they're expected to be here according to policy.
So they're 40-hour employees, or are they at will any amount of time kind of a thing?
Well, they're salaried employees, so it's just considered part of their workday.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
I'm not sure how the rules came to be, but, you know, that's what's on the books right now.
And then just one other comment, I guess. You were talking how about short-staffed city council is, or not city council, city here. Just if you look at the senior center, there's only one full-time employee, and that is the boss. So when she wants to have time off, she can't have a week off. It's difficult because she then is scheduling people to open in the mornings, people to open at night. So it's just a word to the wise that we are running a pretty tight ship, and she's there by herself, and I don't know if she's ever taken 2 weeks off, which for me, I mean, that's just, it's like, wow, I mean, I can take 2 weeks off at a heartbeat. I could just sign up and take some vacation, but for her, this is something for us to think about that.
Right. And I am, just a little preview, I am trying to gear the budget towards meeting city council goals and objectives. So you will see some new staffing positions, so be prepared. But it doesn't specifically address the senior center, for instance.
And is the budget available downstairs in my...
Not yet.
Okay.
I've been hammering out the details. I'm hoping by Thursday afternoon we'll have it available.
Okay. Thank you.
Tom, just a question, Pete. Sure. On at the council retreat, the last one, we asked the departments to come up with the goals for their area. That's coming up, I believe. What's the status on that?
Yeah, we're, I believe all of the departments except the fire department have something together. And there's been some discussion, I believe Liaison McMahon has had some discussion with the fire chief regarding, okay, if we're going to hire a new fire chief, a full-time fire chief, when should that work be done? So that's something we need to explore a little bit more. But we will be moving forward with those goals.
Okay, so are they written down?
I have a copy of the library. I believe the senior center. Public Works has promised me theirs shortly, and I don't have one for the fire department because of what we discussed.
Okay, but you know the one I'm interested in. So.
Public Works, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Sick.
One of the things, being the business and civic liaison, that I've kind of started talking around is trying to find a way to better connect with our businesses, whether it be Portland Avenue, over on 82nd Drive, up by Latest, or McLaughlin. The city cannot be a chamber of commerce, I don't believe. But I'm starting to reach out to see if there are citizens in the business community that would be interested in taking the lead, and it doesn't have to be a chamber of commerce or anything like that, but I don't know what other word to use to explain it. I'm thinking of trying to find a way to get as many businesses as we possibly could involved in this. And then you could have subgroups out of that would be the McLaughlin people, the 82nd Drive, the Portland Avenue people, that could do breakout sessions. so the council can be better connected with the businesses on what they would like. Business development. There's 3 entities out there that I'm aware of, and if there's more, I hope somebody directs me towards them. The Rotary, the Kiwanis, and the Gladstone Business Owners Association. And I'm working, and Dominic said he would help me out with it. And we're going to try and meet with those 3 to get some input and see if we can get somebody to maybe get something like that started.
Is Walt Fitch still running the...
No.
Oh, he's not?
No. He stepped down, and they have got somebody else, Doug Luce is doing that. Walt's still involved, but he stepped down as the chairperson, and Doug Luce is now the chairperson for it. So, I hope you all think that would be something good for our city. That's all I got.
Okay, I had the great privilege of visiting a couple police departments. We were in Milwaukee 2 weeks ago. Very impressed with their facility. And then Saturday we went to Lake Oswego, to Tigard. Spent a couple hours touring that, looking at huge facility, lots of officers, and lots of room. And they have a city hall that's connected to theirs, where people can come in, and one side they can get all the permits that they need and everything. Or the other side is the police department in this big lobby. It's really laid out really nice. And then from there we went to Sherwood and looked at what the town of Sherwood has did with their facilities. And they've got a beautiful library, and on top of that is the city hall and a little Coke shop that's connected to it, a building, and it was really designed nice, and it's a big, huge area. They say they have some problems with heating and air conditioning because the roof is, I don't know how many feet high, but it's way up there. But they combined the two, and it fit pretty well. They really did a good job on it, and so we got some ideas of the police departments and how they're laid out and how neat some of them are, and some of them got a lot more rooms than they need, it looks like. But I look at ours, and we're not even 1/10 of what most of these departments are. I don't know how we even function with our department as small as it is. But and the city staffs were all much larger than ours. And one city had a staff of 40 people. I'm thinking, oh God, if we could just get a couple more of those people, But that's what we need to work towards that. And I know we need better facilities, newer facilities, and looking at what other cities have, combine that in when we design ours. I think it'd be a great thing for the city. It really boosts the morale, for one thing. That's all I've got. I'm heading out of town. I'm gone for about a week and a half. Dominic's heading out of town.
I don't have anything. I just want to thank Steve for getting the ball rolling, or running with the ball on Tri-Cities, and Kim, your work on the business license, and Jolene for your work on the business license, and just thanks. A lot of work, a lot of good work. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned at 9:27.
See you next